My first ever motorcycle that I rode was a dirt bike. It was like a 1970s Honda dirt bike that my dad bought that was broken, and then he got it running and fixed it. And then me and my brother had it to ride. Then he picked up a two-stroke Yamaha. The Honda was a four-stroke. The Yamaha was a two-stroke, and it was like a 1980 something. Those were a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. I remember when I first found out that Honda had a fourth gear, and it could go, because we thought it only had 3 gears, but fourth gear was really hard to get into. And when we found out it had a fourth gear, we were like, oh my gosh, it goes 45. And I remember we lost our minds riding through trails up in up north Wisconsin, near Boulder, in the area of Boulder Junction Lake, Boulder Junction or Boulder Lake. Then my next experience with the motorcycle was sitting on the back of my dad's 1999 BMW 1150. I believe it was an RT. I mean, I was only like 12 when he got it, so it's hard to remember. Plus, my dad owned, at all times, we had like 11 cars in the driveway because he was a mechanic. That bike was wonderful. It was so fast. When he got on it, I mean, that thing moved, but there was a lot of complaints I had about that bike. Extremely tall seat height. And I'm not a big fan of boxer engines in a motorcycle because I just don't like the cylinder heads and everything being in my way. And then they're like right there at your feet. So I'm just not a big fan of it. Plus, it's not an experiential sound enough to me. Anywho's, the next motorcycle that I finally got to get on myself was a 1989 FJ 1200 Yamaha. My younger brother owned it. That was a fun bike. That had a great sound, and it ripped too for being a 1989. It spun its tire in third at 80 miles an hour if he got on it. It spun him before it went. And I was like, man, that thing it was fun, but it was a maintenance nightmare. And it ended up being in shops like several times, and then he finally just gave up on it because literally mechanic after mechanic after mechanic was like, and eventually he just said, you know what, this is a money pit, and he got rid of it. It was a abused bike. He bought it and it had been abused, and it was abused, and it was not treated well in its life. Then me, my brother, and a friend of mine all decided at the same time we were going to get motorcycles. First thing I did was I went to Road America in Wisconsin, and I took a driver's course with my brother. Then we all started looking and getting our bikes. My brother already had his bike. He bought it first, and then and I did the opposite route where I wanted to get the Road America thing first done, and then I went and got a bike. And oh yeah, all my friends, everyone in my group was like, all right, the motorcycle elitist came out of them, right? Where it's like they don't even own like one of my friends didn't even own a bike yet. My brother at least did. But boy, when I said, man, I'm looking at getting a Ninja 300, they literally were all like, I haven't even like driven it yet or anything. I haven't even known anything about it. They're all like, you're an idiot. You're stupid. They're like, you're gonna ride that thing for one summer, and the next summer you're gonna sell it. Well, long story short, to just save a lot of time, I bought that 2014 Ninja 300, and I put 33,000 miles on it before I sold it. Does it sound like I went one summer on it? Motorcycles, riders are a lot like, like anything in this world. We can get people who are like, they need a box to define this culture. What is a motorcycle enthusiast or a motorcycle rider, right? And then they put it in a box, and it's like, oh, if you own a beginner bike like a Ninja 300 or a 250 or a 400, then you are all of a sudden you are not part of this is a real motorcycle club. It's the same thing in the pickup truck world, right? If you ride around in a Ford Ranger or a Ford Maverick, you're gonna have the dude with his F350 Power Stroke who's never even hooked, his trailer hitch is, cleaner than my, than my driver's record. You know what I mean? Like, he's never even used anything, and he's going to be the guy that's judging this guy with a Ford Maverick or a Ford Ranger when it's like, bro, you bought a pickup truck, and you don't even use a pickup truck. You just want everyone to think you're manly, think you're cool, and that's fine if that's what they want. I don't need an image. I don't need a machine to make my image. I make my own image. If you don't like my image, unlike, unsubscribe, destroy the bell, throw it in the garbage, and leave me a hateful comment because I don't care. My opinion is valid, and your opinion is valid too. So I want to hear it. That's fine if you don't like me. I welcome it. The next motorcycle that I rode after I rode that Ninja 300, for, obviously up until 33,000 miles and then got rid of it for this. I rode a 2003. Actually, wait. First, it was a 1999 Yamaha R1, and it was carbureted. Now, how did I like that bike? I didn't. It really hurt. Man, did it hurt. My wrists were so sore. After about 15 minutes, I was like, this is not an enjoyable experience. I like the sound. I like the speed. But man, I was like, this is not like what I'm looking for. I did go 176 on the bike because why not? Then I rode a 2001 Yamaha R6. I like that bike too. What I didn't like about that bike is that when I got on the freeway here in I-43 here in Wisconsin, the thing death wobbled on me. Like, geez Louise, this thing, I ride one-handed all the time going 90 on the freeway. That Yamaha R6 death wobbled and it had an aftermarket steering stabilizer. So the bike did not make me feel confident, and it did not inspire confidence in me. It made me feel like, oh my gosh, this thing is like a death trap. The next bike I rode and got the pleasure of riding was the same friend who owned that Yamaha R6. He sold it and he got a 2003 Harley V-Rod. That was actually the first Harley that I was introduced to. I had never ridden, because I come from a family that doesn't, my dad was a European vehicle mechanic, like, doesn't like Harleys. And riding that, and here, first off, the sound was so much better, because instead of potato, it's like, wow, this thing just sounds like it's got breath, it's got legs, it can run. And he let me ride it, and I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. I can't tell you too much about the experience because it was brief, because he was very nervous, because those did go up in value, and he did sell it for a profit. And it was a fun bike. I liked that Harley V-Rod. Then I rode a Kawasaki Ninja 600, carbureted also, and I want to say like 1994. Great bike too, nothing wrong with it. It's very similar to all other 600s and stuff, no complaints, just, you're right, good speed. This one I liked a little bit more because it was I don't know the style it was called, but it was not where you sit on your wrist, it was where you sit upright. It's like, oh thank goodness, they changed the foot pegs and all that. So it was a 600 engine, like a crotch rocket engine, but it had a different seating and different foot peg position, which I much preferred. Next, I rode a coworker of mine let me ride his Honda 600 double R, and he had a dyno and it makes 130 horsepower. That same experience. I hated it on my wrists, but as far as the speed and everything, woo-wee, I went 168 on that bike, I think. That was a fun bike too. But I handed it back to him, and I was like, my wrist hurts. He actually then sold that bike, and he ended up getting an Aprilia V4, which I'm so envious of, because the V4s are like, they are the greatest sounding engines. If I could get an old Honda VFR 800, oh, the Chicken Hawk, or the Super Hawk, I always like to call it the Chicken Hawk. But let's see here, the next bike I rode was, I had a coworker of mine let me ride his Honda Shadow or something like that. It was a big Honda. It was an equivalent, it's like a competitor with Harley. Sorry, I don't know the names, because I don't get into those kind of bikes. Not that they're wrong, I just don't know them very well. That had a fixed fairing, and so that really threw me off. I didn't like it. It was very cumbersome to turn. I only drove it for 5 minutes, and then I brought it back to him. His name was Alec, and I said, hey, I was like, thanks for letting me ride it. I just wasn't his similar looking bike to this. I just don't know Harleys either because they're all right. You have to really know their bikes. It's like Porsche; they all look the same, so you have to like really know their brand to like know the difference. But he let me ride his Harley with a 107 in it. Felt very similar to that big Honda with a fixed fairing. I also didn't like it. Handed it back to him and said, "Hey, thanks for letting me ride it." Then I had a coworker let me ride his Harley Sportster with an 883. That I actually like more than the other ones because I just don't like bikes that weigh like. I'm not a fan of bikes that feel like oil rigs that were taken into the ocean and put on two wheels and then said like, all right, I'll try turning and driving this thing and accelerating it. So that Sportster 883, even though it's underpowered, at least it was a more nimble ride and I enjoyed it more. And that same person then sold it and got a Sportster 1200. He's not a very tall person, so he needs a smaller bike for a smaller seat height. That's the other thing too with motorcycle riders, when they get very elitist on what you should be riding. It's like, well, a lot of the determining factor is your in-seat height, because you shouldn't be riding a motorcycle if both of your feet. They taught me this at Road America. If both of your feet do not sit flat on the ground, the bike is too tall for you, and you should look for a bike with a lower seat height or have the bike's seat height adjusted, or if there's a way to. Because you should be able to have both feet flat on the ground. I see a lot of riders, and I've seen it on YouTube, we've all seen it, of like someone who's like, 4 feet tall or 5 feet tall barely, and they're riding a bike with a huge seat height, and they're like jumping off of it and walking with it, and it's like, you can do anything in life. And if that's what you want to do, go for it. I highly recommend having both feet flat on the ground on a bike to know that, hey, this is the right size for me. If you're rocking on tippy toes, that bike is too tall for you,